Thank you for joining NMH at 1, where we highlight pertinent news and current affairs, community stories from across Namibia, as well as international headlines.
Here's what to expect in this lunch hour. Bernhardt Esau tells court that he did not unilaterally change the Marine Resources Act. Agriculture Minister commissions reconstructed Omahenene-Olushandja Canal. Ghana suspends part of foreign debt payments.
Stay with NMH at 1. Economic news, sports updates, and international headlines coming up, read to you by Glenora Shipura and Ashwin Berry. In today's midday news update, former Fisheries Minister Bernhardt Esau told the court this morning that he did not unilaterally change the Marine Resources Act, but that this review was started by the fisheries staff and stakeholders in the industry. He also referred to a two-day workshop on the Marine Resources Act review and that a committee was set up for this review. Esau said a request was sent from the Fisheries Ministry Office to the Law Reform and Development Commission, then headed by his co-accused Saki Shangala, to present submissions on the amendment of the Marine Resources Act. This request, however, gathered dust, said Esau. The former minister appeared in the Windhoek High Court for his second bail application. He earlier told Namibian Sun he is very strong and the truth will set him free. The truth will come out. More is to come. Esau and co-accused Nigel van Veek's bail hearing continued today.
Leave us a comment on our social media platforms to engage with these stories. Visual news coming up right after the break.
Hi Nangula, you look sad.
Hi Peter, I am sad because my parents argued about whether I should spend the weekend at my mom's or dad's place. When I asked them why my views were not considered, they told me it has nothing to do with me as I am too young.
That's a job for your K-pop participation. It can fix that.
My cap of what?
You're right. They're your superpowers. Your cape of participation is your right to participation. It means you have a right to participate in decisions which affect your life. You have a right to an opinion and to tell people your views in a respectful way.
For more information, contact the Children's Advocate Namibia in the Office of the Ombudsman on 061 20 73 111. Send us an SMS on 20401. SMS costs 40 cents. You can also send us a message via our Facebook page. Remember, the services of the Children's Advocate are free of charge.
Getting into our visual news. Last week, Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform Carl Schleitwein commissioned the reconstructed Omahenene-Olushandja Canal. The minister also inaugurated the Otapi settler. This footage is courtesy of the Agriculture Ministry.
This time around we had two occasions or two events in the northern part of Namibia. That's in the Umsati region. The first one was the inauguration of a rehabilitated canal. It's the main artery of freshwater supply to the four northern regions. That's for Umsati, Oshona, Ohangwena, and Oshikoto, which comes from the Kaluek Dam to a number of purification plants, from where it is distributed through a complicated distribution network to almost all the towns and villages in the area. Now, this infrastructure was about 50 years old, needs to be refurbished, and the canal refurbishment is one of the most important components of this program, which follows the refurbishment of the pump station at Kaluek, and it is followed by the upgrading and refurbishment of all four purification plants in the region. The second component is a component in a purification plant. It's for the Otapi town and the immediate surroundings of Otapi. Again, it's an infrastructure that has been 40 years old. It has had a capacity of 70 cubic meters an hour, whereas the demand has grown over the last 40 years, to over 200 cubic meters an hour. Now that upgrade has now been accomplished in a matter of 5 months. We have installed a settler plant. It's a plant where the flocculants are picked up and the sludge is separated from the cleaner water. We are very happy that we could, with that, resolve the crisis that we had in Otapi and in their surroundings. Unfortunately, we were forced to restrict water supply because of the lack of capacity for these 5 months. That is now solved, and I'm very happy that we could do that in a period of 5 months, which is pretty fast and quick. We have now an ability and a capacity to deliver pure water, satisfying the total demand.
Now, along with other transit points in southern Africa, Namibia's border posts play an increasingly important role as a transit route for smuggling cocaine from Latin American countries. Newspaper Review takes us into these and more news from the country's daily newspapers. Stay with NMH at 1.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toyvon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts, and experts. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact agenda@synergy.com.na. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
Let's get into our newspaper review. On its front page, the Namibian Sun reports that along with other transit points in southern Africa, Namibia's border posts and the Walvis Bay port are believed to play an increasingly important role as a transit route for smuggling cocaine from Latin American countries. Apart from local markets within southern Africa, most of the cocaine that lands here is destined for Europe, West Asia, East Asia, and Australia. This is according to a report released last week by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Now, Jason Ehrlich, GITOC Senior Research in Illegal Drug Trafficking Markets and a policy analyst, referred to Walvis Bay as one of the popular havens for cocaine smuggling in his report entitled A Powder Storm: The Cocaine Markets of East and Southern Africa. Now, the People's Patriot revisits the discussions between Namibia and Germany, reporting that David Hans Guap of the Karakuan Nama subclan said Germany's failure to admit to genocide and render an apology to the descendants of the Nama and Omahenene communities is a sign that they are not sincere in their negotiations with Namibia. Hans, a vice chairperson of the Nama Traditional Leaders Association, is one of the people who told Vice President Nangolo Mbumba that they are not interested in a dialogue on the controversial joint declaration with Germany. That country offered Namibia $18.4 billion in development aid in lieu of reparations. In a separate report following reports of schoolboy gangs terrorizing Rundu residents, Police Chief Inspector General Joseph Shikongo last week ordered police in the Kavango East region to engage in robust operations to tackle the high crime rate in the town.
Now, on the front page of the Afrikaans daily newspaper Republikein, they report that the former Minister of Fisheries and Marine Resources, Bernhardt Esau, has spoken about how ministers use travel allowances to fund their luxury lifestyles, further explaining how it has helped him to expand his asset base. Esau, who appeared before Judge David Munsu in the High Court in Windhoek on Friday in connection with his second bail application, testified how he earned almost 10,000 Namibian dollars daily in accommodation and travel allowance when he traveled abroad in his official capacity. Traveling is profitable for ministers. That's where we make our money, and that's why there's so much public interest, he said. According to Esau, his travel allowance budget per year was about 1.5 million Namibian dollars. Allegedly, SNT was used as a cash cow for civil servants, with the state spending more than 200 million Namibian dollars annually on travel allowances. Now on its page 3, the paper reports that the Electoral Commission of Namibia would undergo a complete overhaul to ensure its total independence as well as credible polls. The courts have indicted the ECN on several occasions on its handling of the elections and directed it to improve its systems. One such instance was a 2020 challenge brought by Dr. Panduleni Itula against the ECN's decision to use electronic voting machines without a verifiable paper trail in the 2019 presidential polls.
The Algemene Zeitung today leads with an article about Recon Africa, while the Canadian gas and oil company inserts big adverts and markets itself in state media as a company with integrity. Objections from environmental experts against their latest application for an environmental clearance certificate that would see the company materially extending their exploration activities in the Kavango regions seems to prove just the opposite. Quite apart from Recon Africa and its exploration activities in what is regarded a biodiverse and sensitive environment, the technical terms that are used in the environmental impact assessment by the Environmental Agency, risk-based solutions, are found to be lacking. Apart from that, RBS seems to be more concerned with criticizing other sectors instead of the exploration matter at hand. Now, on its page 3, the Algemene Zeitung reports that the Trevally Mining Group, which has caused some turmoil in the mining sector a while ago when it placed all of its promising developments at Roshpina Zinc Mine on ice, has now been sold to new investor funds generally known as the APN Natural Resources Funds. Trevally had announced promising developments and started implementing them when it suddenly called a stop to these new developments on account of some setbacks of the mother company. If all the required approvals are passed without a hitch, the deal should be passed in the first quarter of 2023.
Stay with NMH at 1 as we continue with the newspaper review shortly.
Africa Good Morning is the current affairs program that brings you the latest from Southern Africa and beyond. News, economics, sport, weather, interviews, and so much more. For any advertising or news-related queries, contact agm at synergy.com.na. Africa Good Morning, bringing Africa to you.
Continuing with the newspaper review, we head over to the Namibian. Opposition parties in both Namibia and South Africa have blasted President Hage Geingob for attending the 2022 FIFA World Cup finals in Doha, Qatar over the weekend. Now, on its page 1, they report that the Popular Democratic Movement leader McHenry Venani says he has also received an invitation to attend the World Cup, but he turned it down. President Geingob has one weakness: he is a soccer fanatic and will justify it in any way. He had no business being there at all, Venani says. Now, the paper's page 3 reports that Namibia's short-term insurance sector, worth about 2.1 billion Namibian dollars, is expected to be hit by increases in claims following the damage last week's flash floods caused in Windhoek. The Namibian Financial Institutions Supervisory Authority says unless flood risks are specifically excluded from the scope of cover, insurance companies can expect an increase in claims.
Canadian-listed Osino Resources has recently staked a large new land package approximately 100 kilometers to the east of the Twin Hills Gold Project. This continuous block of license has a combined area of 2,681 kilometers squared and covers what Osino believes to be the eastern extension of the fertile Karibeb Fault, which is host to the company's Twin Hills discovery. It said in an announcement on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Now, the package also covers the Mon Repos Thrust, which is believed to be instrumental in the formation of the Navajo gold.
Now, world coal consumption is set to rise to the highest level ever this year. We return with economic news shortly.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact B7 at synergy.com.na.
Heading into economic news, world coal consumption is set to rise to the highest level ever this year, despite ambitious global goals aimed at weaning nations off burning the dirty fossil fuel. Coal usage looks likely to increase by 1.2% in 2022, surpassing 8 billion tons in a single year for the first time, according to an International Energy Agency report published on Friday. It also said consumption will likely remain at that level until 2025, as declines in advanced economies are offset by demand in emerging Asian markets such as China and India. Europe's heavy reliance on coal this year is largely driven by Russia's curtailment of gas supplies to the continent, forcing it to draw on other energy sources. It's at a time when European leaders are also attempting to shift toward renewables to secure a clean source of power going forward.
The United States Navy on Monday awarded Amazon.com Cloud Computing Division a 5-year enterprise software license contract worth $723.9 million. The deal will provide the Navy with access to Amazon Web Services commercial cloud environment, professional services, and its training and certification courses. Earlier this month, the Pentagon awarded cloud computing contracts worth $9 billion to Alphabet Inc.'s Google, AWS, Microsoft Corp, and Oracle Corp as part of the joint war-fighting cloud capability contract. Now, the Pentagon said work will be performed for a maximum of 5 years from December this year through 2028.
Let's have a look at the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar is down next to the British pound, euro, and US dollar, but maintained its value next to the Chinese yuan, trading at 2.53 Namibian dollars. Looking at the NSX, it seems like all stocks have maintained their value. MTC is still on 7.03 points. Local index also closed on the same space. Overall index closed with an upsurge 1.53%. And looking at commodities, both gold and zinc closed down 0.1% and 2.14% respectively, whilst copper and Brent crude oil both made upsurges.
Ghana suspended payments on part of its foreign debt on Monday as the country undertakes debt restructuring. We'll find out what this means as we return with this story and more news from the African continent.
Region. For news-related or advertising queries, contact irongotalk@synergy.com.na. Irongo Talk, our community, your news.
Heading into news stemming from the African continent, Ghana suspended payments on part of its foreign debt on Monday as the country undertakes debt restructuring in line with the bailout deal with the International Monetary Fund. The West African state is facing an economic crisis with inflation at more than 50% and its cedi currency down sharply, hit by adverse effects of the global pandemic and the Ukraine crisis. That is why we are announcing today a suspension of all debt service payments under certain categories of our external debt, pending an orderly restructuring of the affected obligations, the Finance Ministry said in a statement. This suspension will include payments on Eurobonds, commercial term loans, and on most of bilateral debt. The government, however, said the suspension would exclude payments of multilateral debt, new debt contracted after December 19, 2022, or debts related to certain short-term trade facilities. We are also evaluating certain specific debts related to projects with the highest socio-economic impact for Ghana, which may have to be excluded, it said.
In an effort to enhance the integrity of the country's borders and to safeguard jobs of the natives as festive season draws closer, the Department of Immigration and Citizenship Services says it has stepped up border patrol, permit inspection and compliance countrywide. This is according to Inspector Pasquale Zulu, the national spokesperson for the Immigration Department, who said the initiative is meant to curtail criminal activities happening in all the borders of the country, which which among others include border jumping, use of fake immigration stamps, and fake travel documents that are synonymous with surge in human trafficking. Now, being an era rife with international uncertainty and national or regional conflicts, we face continuous challenges from constantly evolving threat and volatile situations, which, if not handled properly, may compromise our national security and social-economic developments of the country. The department has then advised all foreign nationals residing in Malawi to carry certified copies of their passport, data page, and endorsement stamp page, not to engage themselves in any employment or business activity before permit approval, saying failure to comply risk deportation.
Stay with NMH at 1 as we head into international news shortly.
Active Kids is an initiative under the MyZone brand that aims to provide exciting and easy activities and fun stories. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na. Active Kids, where we actively invest in your future.
Let's get into our international news. Rescuers are combing the Gulf of Thailand in a crucial second day of a search for 30 sailors who are still missing after a warship sank. Survivors have been found after floating for hours, with some in an unconscious state, officials said. Now, the HTMAS Sakotia, carrying 105 crew, went down late Sunday after becoming flooded during a storm. Rescuers have saved 75 people so far, with boats and helicopters in an operation scouring the rough seas. Now, several sailors have already been found injured and exhausted after spending many hours at sea. We found this guy holding a life buoy. He was floating in the water for 10 hours. Captain Krapich Karowi Paparuit of the HTMS Karaburi told Reuters.
Now stay with us as we continue into the next story. Prime Minister Mark Rutte on Monday apologized on behalf of the Dutch state for its historical role in slavery and for consequences that he acknowledged continue into the present day. Today I apologize, Rutte said in the nationally televised speech at the Dutch National Archives. For centuries, the Dutch state and its representatives have enabled and stimulated slavery and have profited from it, he added. It is true that nobody alive today bears any personal guilt for slavery. However, the Dutch state bears responsibility for the immense suffering that has been done to those that were enslaved and their descendants. You are still with NMH at 1. We'll be heading into local sports shortly.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact evening@synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
Heading into local sport, football clubs have been given an opportunity to bolster their squads for next year after it was announced that they will have till January to register and transfer players on the registration system. The Namibia Football Association has announced that the registration of players by football clubs will be extended until 20 January. The announcement was made by League Director Mabos Fries, who explained that the extension is aimed at giving clubs enough time to register and transfer players. Prior to the extension, the closing date was 16 December. At the start of the football season, there were complaints about the registration of players after clubs felt that they were being hurried into registering players without enough time to assess them. The complaints were made shortly after it was announced that Debmarine Namibia would become the sponsors of the Premier League.
Now, CrossFit boxers from all over the country and the world were training intensively for the two-day fourth annual event. Organizer and competitor from CrossFit Swakopmund, Janke Rental, said fitters in the Namib initially started in SA, and we decided that hosting fitters in the Namib in Swakopmund in 2019 would be great for the first time because everyone loves to be in Swakopmund in December, as it will be perfect to get everybody to come compete. The fitters in the Namib accommodates everyone from the ages of 14 to 99. A whopping 72 teams registered to be a part of the fitters in Namib 2022 alone. Majority were from Namibia, but this year had a high international entry rate. South Africa had about 16 entries, 3 teams from Germany and 1 team from the Netherlands. Taking place over 2 days, participants teamed up in same-sex teams of 2 went head-to-head in 6 different CrossFit workouts. Now the teams either participated in the scale, Orex or Masters workouts.
Now, former Kaizer Chiefs midfielder Robert Nauseb has urged the Soweto Giants to make a move for a player he believes can be the next Peter Shalulile. Nauseb is of the view that Ndengu can be as good as Shalulile. The retired midfielder urged Motong Jr. to keep an eye on Ndengu. Chiefs are currently in the market for new strikers. Nauseb feels Nehemiah Lenin Ndengu, who plies his trade in the Namibian Premier League for Shalulile's former club Tura Magic, is good enough to play for Chiefs. Stay with us as we head into the international sports.
In the Orongo region. For news-related or advertising queries, contact irongotalk@synergy.com.na. Irongo Talk, our community, your news.
In our international sports story, semi-automated offside technology will be introduced to Serie A next month. The Italian Football Federation announced on Monday in a statement. FIGC said the technology developed by global governing body FIFA and used at the World Cup will be used from the 20th round of matches on the last weekend of January after consultations with Domestic Refereeing Association AIA. You are still with NMH at 1, and if you've missed the beginning of this broadcast, worry not as we head straight into the highlights. Ghana suspended payments on part of its foreign debt on Monday as the country undertakes debt restructuring in line with a bailout deal with the International Monetary Fund. Football clubs have been given an opportunity to bolster their squads for next year after it was announced that they will have till January to register and transfer players on the registration system.
Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa and the world, ranging from current affairs, economic news, sports and international headlines.
From Glenn Rashupura and Ashwin Berry, take care.